Bowling Green back at Deutsch Perry Stadium this weekend as the voice of the Falcons. Todd Walker joins us now on College Football Weekly. And Todd, let's start off with this. Close loss at Kent State. Do moral victories count for Bowling Green at this stage in the season?
I think in a way they count because it shows progress. When you look at the last 2 years against Kent State, Bowling Green was completely run off the field. And this year it was a tie game in the fourth quarter. So progress, yes. Moral victories, that doesn't cut it with most football coaches. And I think you saw Coach Leffler's response after the game when it was put to him in much the same manner. The fact of the matter is the Falcons outplayed Kent State for portions of that game. They really felt like they were their own worst enemy with some key mistakes that cost them the game. And the bar was raised with that win at Minnesota, and no question about it. And really, when I think you break it down, Justin Crum was the difference in the game. He was nearly flawless for Kent State. He made a number of big runs when he looked to be in big trouble and made the plays when he needed to. And Kent State got a hard-earned victory. But I think it does show that Bowling Green's going to make some noise in the MAC East.
Matt McDonald, an untimely interception. Is there a concern about the psyche of the senior quarterback? Do you think Matt's going to bounce back well?
Oh, I think he'll be fine. I just think it's really a case of trying to make a play that isn't there and to take the first read that was open and let Nate Needham kick a field goal there. You know, it was just a case of trying to do too much. And I think the only thing you worry about with the offense with Matt is clearly they're not running the ball like they want to. And I think sometimes he's trying to make a play that maybe is not there. Took a couple of big negative sacks in that game on plays he either should have just ate it for a 4 or 5 yard loss or thrown it away. Instead, he's giving ground and trying to race out of the pocket, make something happen. I think if he's cleaning those things up, he'll be fine. It's just, you know, the competitor in a guy comes out, he wants to make that play late in the game when it's tied instead of just taking what's there. And I think it's just a further maturation process.
A little over a third of the way through this season, I think it's fair to say this Bowling Green team is more competitive than we thought they were going to be, and they're a better football team than we thought they were going to be this season.
Yeah, there's no question about that. And, you know, it really, you can see it in Matt McDonald. You know, you talk about, are you worried about him bouncing back? If he bounced back from last season, he can bounce back from anything because Bowling Green was completely outclassed in all 5 games they played last year. And Matt McDonald was not physically up to the challenge. We know that in hindsight, but last year was very tough. This year's team is immeasurably better, you know, exponentially better, whatever adjective you can come up with. It's a very much competitive team, and last year they were much the opposite.
Akron coming into town. The Zips are 1-4. They're averaging over 40 points scored against them. Losing to Auburn and Ohio State kind of skews those averages a little bit, but I think this is a chance for the Bowling Green offense to get healthy and really put up some points against the Zips.
Well, I think this is a week where Bowling Green's got to run the football. And you look at last week with Kent State, they handed the ball off to running backs Patterson and Mosley 15 times. Those guys average 5 yards per carry. I just think maybe sometimes they get away from the run game because it hasn't been on balance successful, so maybe they don't trust it. But I think against Akron, when you look at the numbers they've been surrendering on the ground, they gave up 400 to Ohio last week, who's not exactly been lighting people up. I think this week you got to try and stick with the run a little more. And as long as Akron doesn't get out to some kind of lead, which the way the defense is playing, I don't see happening. I think this week they try to stick with the traditional run game a little more, especially early. Establish they will run the ball and work off of that.
It's not fair to play the what-if game, but with the way the Falcons have struggled running the ball, you have to wonder, what if Andrew Clare hadn't transferred to Northwestern? Would he be making a difference in that Falcon backfield?
Well, sir, we didn't play what if. Why do we have these shows, right? What if Andrew Clare, you know, I love Andrew Clare, and he's a great talent. I don't think it would make much difference. I mean, they had Andrew Clare last year, and you know, he didn't do much. This offensive line is just, it's taking time for it to happen. I think they've got a number of backs that have a lot of talent, so they're splitting up the carries, keeping those guys fresh, which I think is a good thing too. But as this line matures and as they get into the heart of the conference, hopefully they'll just be able to pick it up a notch and get a respectable running game, if not dangerous, but just something people have to pay attention to.
Other side of the ball, that defense continues to lead the way for the Falcons. What has been the biggest improvement from last year to this year? Is it those transfers in the back seven? Is it just the maturation process? Why is the defense so much better than it was a year ago?
I think outside of bringing in the key guys that are transfers in big spots, I think the biggest improvement just organically has been the defensive line. Those guys have gotten a lot better. Carl Brooks has always been a force, but the other guys on that line seemingly all have taken major steps together, and not just one or two of them, but four or five of them. So even when they go to the backup guys on the D line, they are wreaking havoc and producing. So I have no doubt, to me, that the biggest surprise on the defense is how good the D line is, being the fact that they did not bring in any older guys, transfer portals, JUCOs, none of that up front. That was on the linebacker level and the back end. That D line, that's all player development. That's all individuals working and getting better.
Considering how poorly Akron has played this season, do you think Bowling Green's got to worry about being maybe overconfident going into this game, or do you think Scott Leffler's going to have a focus on the fact that we need to take care of business regardless of who that opponent is?
Yeah, I think you're right on that point, but also last week losing to Kent State, that sticks in your craw. You know, it doesn't matter that Kent State's picked to win the MAC East. That's an old rival for Bowling Green, and that's again a game where they had a chance to win and they didn't close the deal. So I think they're as hungry as they've been in any game this year to get a win against Akron. You're back home, and this is a game that you need to win, and I think they're going to have that mindset.
All right, thank you very much, Todd Walker, the voice of the Bowling Green Falcons on the BG Radio Network. Thank you again.
Thanks, Mark.